Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. It's been a long while since I posted my last video. I think about 2 months ago now when I was in Chennai. I arrived back to the UK a few days ago. I've been watching a lot of the games that have taken place in this Asia Cup so far. And as you can tell by the title of the video, the reason why I'm posting this video is because after a long while, Virat Kohli has finally registered his 71st international century. Huge congratulations to him. And on this topic, I voiced my displeasure before when criticisms were first arising, and that's because, in my view, rather than because of how he was batting when, let's say, he scored a 50, they arose simply because he hadn't scored a century. Now, in 2022, the century talk has dissipated because he hasn't really found that fluency that you could really expect a century, and I think ever since the 79 that he scored in, I think, January of this year against South Africa, in I think the third test of that series, he hasn't really found any fluency at all. And I think when he scored a 50 after that, I think, for example, when he scored the 73 against the Gujarat Titans, I have been quite reserved in terms of what I could expect from him in the future, simply because I didn't think that innings would really solve any of the problems, and because of that, I didn't think the innings would hold him in good stead in the immediate future. Unfortunately, after the innings of 79 at the start of this year, whenever he has kind of reached a milestone, that theory has unfortunately worked out. But the one innings which I did think would cause a change was that 79 against South Africa, because of how good of an innings that was. In terms of difficulty of scoring runs, in my view, it's the best innings ever played. And I think that was the one innings where I kind of thought, surely this would spark a change. It's been such a high quality innings, and I'm still really surprised that it hadn't sparked a change. And he scored, I think, 250s in the ODI series against South Africa after that. But then against the West Indies, he did struggle apart from the 150. And in the IPL, he kind of struggled for the majority as well. So I'm quite surprised that innings hadn't really caused a spark to get more consistent scores in. But it is what it is in the end. And I certainly didn't expect, and even he said that he didn't expect a century in this format. I certainly didn't expect him to score a century in this tournament, that too the manner in which he has done. I mean, 122 of 61. He was imperious, honestly, 12 fours and 6 sixes, and especially towards the end, he was playing some ridiculous shots. So, a really good innings from Virat Kohli, credit where it's due. I mean, I will elaborate on what I think about it shortly, but whatever I say in this video, I'm really happy that he scored the century, that he's finally scored a century, the 71st century, and from before, as I said at the start of the video, I thought that's pretty much the reason why the criticisms arose, and I didn't expect him to score one, but I'm really happy he has. Now on how I think we could interpret the century, because in terms of how he's batted in this Asia Cup so far, in the first game against Pakistan, I thought it was a really scratchy innings. Yes, he played a few nice shots from, I'd say, from between when he was on 20 to 30 runs. But in the first 20 runs of his innings, you could say, I think there was only like about one in-control shot that he played. Apart from that, it was just edges. And that was probably, that first 20 runs or so was probably the worst I've ever seen him bat. So after a 42-day break, after a not great IPL season, after a not great England tour either, it's a combination of the fact that when he was batting, he wasn't getting the desired returns. He looked out of sorts, and then he took a break as well, which it didn't really. One, it's hard to get fluency if you take a break, and two, when it's a T20 World Cup year and yet you're being rested from T20 bilateral series, it didn't really make sense, because then how could you expect to be in the side if you don't really play the at least half of the T20 games that are available to play? So I was after seeing the innings against Pakistan, I kind of thought, well, how is this going to go? He then scored a laboured 59 of 44 against Hong Kong, where he grafted a lot for the majority of the innings, and then I think the 1-4 and 3-6s did lift his strike rate to above I think 136 or so. But that innings did rely on the brilliance of Suryakumar Yadav, because both Virat Kohli and KL Rahul had gone quite slowly until that point in that game. Then he scores a 60 of 44 against Pakistan. Now this was the best of the 3 innings that we had seen so far in this competition, in his tournament. And yeah, I thought he played. I do think. Look, I thought he played quite well. And in terms of what he did at the end, yes, the way that he ran twos throughout the innings, I think 8 twos he ran, which he's always been a very good athlete. And in terms of what he did at the end, yes, Haris Rauf bowled well, but I think with what we'd seen from before, I kind of knew that since Kohli's game wasn't really in order, I didn't really expect him to explode like he's done in the past. And although I kind of knew that would be the case, it's an innings that I really did respect, because when India were 135 for 5, knowing that with the batting to come after that point, if any one of Virat Kohli or Deepak Hooda was dismissed at that point in time, they wouldn't have been able to get to the 181 they got to. It required manipulation of the situation from Kohli and Hooda. Yes, the openers going all guns blazing in the first 5 overs really allowed India to get to that score, because the run rate was in such good hands. They had kind of a comfort blanket towards the end especially, but it still took some intelligence from Kohli and Hooda to manipulate the situation for that at that point in time. So that was a good innings by him. Yes, I didn't think he got to anywhere near the peak of his powers, but I still thought, and it is still an innings that I respect a lot. Then the innings against Sri Lanka, a hack across the line, and 2 stumps were uprooted. That wasn't a great shot. And honestly, I wasn't really surprised, because despite what he had done against Pakistan, and you could say on paper 35, 59 and 60 that you thought he was getting better as well in those 3 innings, I still didn't think everything was sorted out. And I still thought there was kind of a bit of a franticness. Yes, against Pakistan he did play well, but I still thought that there was, and I still do think there is some way to go. So I wasn't really surprised that he did get out against Sri Lanka the way he did. And then today he scored an imperious 122. So if you're drawing a line of best fit between kind of those perceived levels of fluency, I think that the general trend is an upward curve. And in my view, look, it is a statement innings, and I understand why kind of people are quite happy, because yes, it's been a long while since he's got the milestone that everyone was anticipating, and also it's the best that we've seen him bat for ever since he scored the 79 against South Africa. However, in my view, there is still something which I think the next 2 series are crucial, simply because, look, if you're looking at the way he started against Pakistan in the first game, if you're looking at what he did in the IPL and in the England tour as well, and don't forget he's taken a 42-day break before he's come into this tournament. Did he have any coaching at this point in time? I don't know, but at this point in time, I don't really think he had coaching. And so I think, look, with how he started off against Pakistan and how he's finished off now, there's no way, in my view, that he could have sorted out everything that was holding him back, especially in the last few months in this tournament. I mean, it started on the 28th, today's the 8th. And in that point in time, he's gone from scoring a 35, in which the first 20 runs of those was the worst I've ever seen him bat, to scoring an imperious 122, his first T20 international 100. I think that it's easy to take the bait because of the gravitas that he has in the game for what he's done in the past. And look, I've wanted him to. He's still my favorite player, and I've always wanted him to score runs. I think we all have, but I think you could go the sensationalist way of this and say, "Wow, it's a brilliant," because today it was a brilliant innings, but I still do think it'll be interesting to see if this innings holds him in good stead against Australia and South Africa, the T20I series, which are being played at home. And I've said this before in this video that so far, ever since that 79, any kind of 50, let's say, that he scored hasn't held him in good stead in the immediate future. He's kind of got a statement knock under his belt now, and it will be interesting to see how he goes in the next two series. Now, I think there will be a bounce and he will feel much more confident in himself. Now, do I think the problems are solved? Well, no, because I just simply because look, with the way that he batted first against Pakistan, with the way that he got out against Sri Lanka, and now it just, and also with the way that it was a laboured innings against Hong Kong. I just think if you've got three, if you take three of those innings and then you compare them with this innings, there's no way, in my view, that those problems would have been solved. And I think, as I said at the start of the video, the criticism started because of the lack of the century, but especially I'm seeing on Twitter where it's kind of a perception that, oh, look, this phase has ended because he scored a century in the way he has. And look, this innings is really good. And I'm not talking about this innings. I'm talking about the lessons that he may take from this innings. And I think the perception that the struggle started with the lack of century and ended by scoring one, I think that perception just is not the correct one. And look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I do think, as I said, because of how big of a name he is, how big of the PR that he's got, of course, when he does well, there will be a lot of clamour. And actually, in the second innings of this game, there was a poll to say, should Virat Kohli open the innings for India in the T20 World Cup? And it first started off as 100% zero in favour of yes, he should. And then it went for 64-36. So yeah, look, I think there is now kind of a lot of clamour, you could say, because he scored this statement knock. And it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he goes against Australia and South Africa. Now, against this opposition, I thought, look, Afghanistan, the pitch was slightly tacky. So before they bowled a ball, I thought that, their spinners may be able to do something. But unfortunately, I thought the agonizing loss yesterday against Pakistan did take its toll. They were playing a game the next day, and they just didn't seem in it from the get-go. Both the openers had no trouble in going about the way they did. And with the bat, apart from, I think, Ibrahim Zadran, who scored an unbeaten 64 in the end, there was really nothing much to speak of in the rest of the bats. So at one point, I think they were, 21 for 6 in 6.50. So I think that shows. And that's the reason why I didn't really bother to analyse this game, because apart from the Virat Kohli century, KL Rahul's brilliant 62, Bhuvneshwar Kumar's 5 for 4, ridiculous figures, honestly. Again, there wasn't really anything in this game apart from those three contributions. Now, in terms of his preferred slot to if he does start in the T20 World Cup, he scored this 100 while opening the batting. Now, does that mean they should give him... The thing is, it depends if he opens the batting against Australia and South Africa, how that alters the team combination. I mean, one positive that especially one player will feel happy about is the fact that Deepak Hooda, since the return of Virat Kohli, despite the fact that he's had such a great start to a T20I career, he hasn't been able to bat at that 3 or 4 slot. And if Virat Kohli does open the batting, then Hooda will be able to slot it there. But a player that may be affected was the captain for today's game, KL Rahul, who scored 62 of 41. Now, if you're comparing both of those two, whose game is more in order? KL Rahul's by far. And honestly, if Virat Kohli hadn't scored this 122, I don't think there would have been this much of a thing to say that he has to open the T20 World Cup. And this is why I'm saying, on this century, I don't really know what to make of it. I'm really happy for him that he's got this century. But in terms of if he takes advantage of the opportunities against Australia, against South Africa, against sides that are more up for the challenge. I mean, I'm not. Look, Afghanistan would have been up for the challenge usually, but I just think the loss from yesterday deflated them. And you've got two sides who would be more up for the challenge and facing against, especially against the likes of Tabriz Shamsi and Adam Zampa, who's got a number on him even from before when he was in form. It'll be interesting to see how he tackles that threat now. And yeah, I think if he takes his opportunity against those two sides, then it holds India in really good stead. And he will also be probably the most confident that he's ever been in the last 2 years or so going into the T20 World Cup. And maybe we'll be able to see a change from the Virat Kohli that we had seen in the last few months. But if he doesn't take advantage of the next two series, now, I'm saying this because already his selection in the Asia Cup hasn't been without scrutiny. I think that it's been very obvious for a long time now that I think, look, because of what he's done in the past, because of how big of a player he is, they are still kind of, in terms of selection, they are still going by that in terms of, even if he takes a break, he gets kind of a pass back into the side. Now, I think even before this particular innings, I think the PR that he had was, understandably, is quite strong, which meant that he still kind of had that leverage to be in the side. Now, after scoring this innings, and if he doesn't take the opportunities against Australia and South Africa, then the PR would have only been fortified by this knock. And how would it work for the team if, in the end, if he wants to open the batting, let's say, if that's his position, then KL Rahul, honestly, when he's kind of on song, which today he played a brilliant knock, and against Pakistan he was great too. I think after he's coming back from injury, the Australia and South Africa series would have been an opportunity to really give him game time at the opening slot. Now, if they want to play Kohli in the opening slot, then you'd think KL Rahul wouldn't really have a place in the side, and I think it's ridiculous because, again, even what was I going to say? It's the fact that, if you're comparing both of those two, then of course KL Rahul's game is in much better order than Kohli's, and just because of this knock, I don't think there should be such a drastic change that KL Rahul does not start on the side. So I think in order for that to kind of possibly happen, Virat Kohli has to take the next two series by storm, because if he doesn't, based on what we've seen before, they're not prepared to drop him as a worst case scenario. And if they and if he doesn't take the opportunities in those two series and you leave KL Rahul out as well, it's not necessarily a great thing to have going into a World Cup. So that's the one precaution that I would kind of warn people about, I guess. But again, if he takes advantage of the next two series, well and good. But if he doesn't, I think that could be a bit of a problem, because the already fortified PR has only been kind of increased by this knock, and at this point in time, I don't think they're prepared to drop him, even if he doesn't do anything as Australian South Africa. So that's my view on this century. I think that, of course, look, it's a great thing that he has scored it, and if he builds on this, again, of course, he walks into this Indian side, but if he doesn't build on it, I think that, again, questions, I say questions have to be asked, but they probably won't be asked, because if they didn't drop him all this time, they certainly won't drop now. So that's on that. I think there's no turning back at this point in time. He has to take advantage of things, otherwise there's going to be a bit of a problem. But really well done to him for scoring this century. He played some really nice shots today, and in terms of the innings he played today, again, there's no faults about that at all. It would certainly give him a bounce, and let's see what that does going into the next two series, which is a very important series in terms of finalizing the combination for the T20 World Cup. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Please share this video with your friends, and remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?